When I was 46, I accidentally saw a line in my daughter's diary. I suddenly realized I had already become a human appliance, fully functional, always on call, yet never truly seen. Until that stormy night, I dug out the travel blogger camera gathering dust and found the young man in the lens, long since ground down by 20 years of marriage, into a blurred shadow. At 5 in the morning, I was already awake before the alarm went off. A body clock set by 20 years of habit was more precise than any watch. I slipped quietly out of bed, afraid of waking Ruyan, who was sleeping beside me. She had worked late and got home at 1 in the morning. Her face still held a faint, youthful softness. In the kitchen, I started preparing breakfast with practiced ease. Ruyan needed high-protein, low-calorie food to keep up her strict figure control. Boiled chicken breast, whole wheat bread, and half an avocado. My son, Fang, was building muscle at the gym. On his plate were 5 egg whites, oatmeal, and a banana. My daughter, Fang, was dieting lately. I prepared a vegetable salad and low-fat yogurt for her, then quietly added a small handful of nuts, worried she might not be getting enough nutrition. The coffee machine gave off a faint hum. I quickly turned it down. Ruyan liked her Americano. No sugar, but heated to about 65 degrees. That was the temperature she found most drinkable. I took out the thermometer and only relaxed after confirming it was right. At 6:30, the family members began to get up one by one. Hurried footsteps came from between the bathroom and the bedroom. "Dad, is my blue shirt ironed yet?" Fang stuffed egg whites into his mouth and asked, his eyes fixed on a fitness video on his phone. "It's in the second drawer of the wardrobe. I prepared it yesterday," I answered, while I took the vitamin tablets Fang had left on the dining table and slipped them into the side pocket of his backpack. Ruyan hurried into the kitchen, picked up her coffee cup, and took a sip. "I have a board meeting today. I need to leave early," she said, picking up her briefcase. She only took one bite of the chicken breast, then set her cutlery down again. "The vitamins," I just started to say, but the door had already shut. I sighed and put away the bottle of vitamins he always forgot to take. Once more, 15 minutes later, the house was quiet again. I stood at the doorway, watching 3 cars pull out of the garage one after another. Ruyan's black Mercedes, Fang's used Honda, and Fang's little electric scooter. They didn't even look back at me standing in the doorway. While clearing the table, I noticed Ruyan had only drunk half her coffee, and it had already gone cold. Her plate was almost untouched. The vitamin tablets were still lying on the small dish. I cleaned everything up one by one, then started the day's usual chores. While tidying Fang's room, an open diary caught my eye. I knew I shouldn't pry into my child's privacy, but the word "dad" still made my eyes linger for a moment. Minmin said her dad was a corporate executive and often took her abroad for vacations. I told her, "My mom is impressive too, a director at a publicly listed company. As for Dad, he's like a smart appliance in the house, responsible for keeping everything running, but nobody pays him any special attention." My hand trembled slightly. I gently closed the diary and put it back where it was. It felt like something broke in my chest. That evening, I made Ruyan's favorite steamed fresh fish, Fang's favorite braised beef, and the Thai lemon shrimp Fang had been talking about for days. At the dinner table, the 3 of them talked excitedly about their day. Ruyan's board meeting report, Fang's internship interview, and Fang's club activity. I tried to bring up the photography class today, but Fang suddenly mentioned the interviewer's impression of him, and the conversation immediately shifted to his job hunting strategy. I lowered my head and put the most tender piece of fish into Ruyan's bowl. She accepted it naturally, almost without even noticing. After dinner, as my conversation with Fang trailed off, Ruyan went to the study to handle the mails, and the children returned to their rooms. After I finished cleaning the kitchen, I stood in the middle of the living room. In this carefully maintained home, I suddenly felt unbearably alone. The family portrait on the wall had been taken at a portrait studio last year. Ruyan sat radiantly in the center. The children stood on either side of her, and I stood at the very edge. It was like I had been photoshopped in later. I touched the smiling face in the photo, and now that expression looked so forced. After seeing my family off, I did not start cleaning right away like usual. Some strange impulse pushed me toward the storage room. That room piled high with old things, the one that was almost never opened. The storage room door hinges made a harsh, squealing sound, as if protesting my sudden visit. Dust floated in the sunlight. I sneezed. Squinting, I searched through the clutter. The boxes were sealed tight with tape. On top, In black marker, it read, Fang Yuan's belongings. I had almost forgotten these were my things. When I moved into Liu Ryan's home 20 years ago, all my possessions were packed up and shoved into the space of less than 2 square meters. The blade of a utility knife cut through the tape that had been sealed for years. My hand trembled slightly. I lifted the lid. A smell of old paper rushed at me. On top was a stack of yellowed travel magazines, with my pen name, Xing, printed boldly on the cover, along with an article titled Solo Through Southern Yunnan, Searching for the Vanished Tea Horse Road. I gently traced that byline, and a faint roughness brushed my fingertips. Beneath the magazines was a Nikon D90 camera. Though outdated, it had been very well cared for. Several lenses were tucked beside it, each carefully wrapped in soft cloth. At the bottom was a stack of notebooks. I opened the first one. It was densely filled with routes, expenses, and local contacts. The handwriting, now somewhat faded. Xing, I murmured to myself. This once moderately well-known name now sounded so unfamiliar. A photograph slipped out of the notebook. In the photo, I was standing at the edge of the Mujiang Grand Canyon, with mist-shrouded mountains behind me. My windbreaker was puffed up by the wind, and I wore a free, unrestrained smile. That was on my 30th birthday, taken after I had completed a half-month trek on my own. I stared at the photo for a long time, until my eyes ached. Was the man in the mirror, now, every day, the middle-aged man shuttling between the kitchen and the washing machine, really the same person? The silence of the storage room was suddenly broken by a phone ring. I jumped in surprise. I hurriedly shoved the photo back into the notebook. Old Fang. The property management said they'll come check the water pipes at 3 this afternoon. You'll be home, right? Liu Ryan's voice came through the receiver, with the noisy office in the background. Yes, I'm here. I've been here the whole time. I answered reflexively, while instinctively using my body to block the open box, as if she could see it through the call. Also, keep dinner light tonight. I've had too many social dinners these past few days. Okay, I'll make some yam congee and steam a fish. After the call ended, I let out a long breath, but then felt a wave of absurdity. Why was I nervous? These were just things from my past, weren't they? But I knew the answer. In this house, anything unrelated to the family's daily functioning was discouraged. For 20 years, I learned to shrink my own needs down to almost nothing, until they nearly vanished. I took the camera and notebook out of the storage room in secret and sealed the rest back up. Back in the bedroom, I hid them in the innermost drawer of the wardrobe, covering them with a winter scarf. That night, after Liu Ryan was asleep, I got up quietly, carried the camera to the balcony, and in the moonlight, I fumbled for the camera buttons, awkwardly adjusting the focus. Through the viewfinder, I saw the scattered lights in the buildings across the way, like falling stars in the dark. The click of the shutter sounded especially clear in the silence. I jumped. I quickly looked back at the bedroom where Ryan had turned over, but she did not wake. The photo appeared on the screen. The composition was ordinary, the exposure too low, but it was the first photo I had taken in 10 years. A long-lost stirring rose from deep in my chest. I stared at that tiny screen until my eyes went dry and sore. The next day, after seeing my family off, a poster on the community notice board caught my eye. Adult Hobby Class Enrollment Photography Basics course. Every Wednesday and Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Second floor, Community Cultural Center. For registration, please consult the neighborhood committee. I stood in front of the notice board, my fingers unconsciously brushing the outline of the camera in my pocket. For 20 years, my daily radius of movement had never exceeded 1 kilometer from the neighborhood. My schedule was arranged entirely around my family's needs. When was the last time I made a decision for myself? I could not even remember. Mr. Fang is interested in the photography class? The lady from the neighborhood committee asked warmly. Your wife, Director Liu, has a very successful career, and the children are all in college now. It's time you had a hobby of your own. I gave an awkward smile. In the neighbor's eyes, I was a lucky stay-at-home husband, enjoying the comfortable life brought by my wife's success, without having to run around for a living. No one knew that every time I heard that kind of thing, it felt like being pricked by a needle. I'm just looking around, I said vaguely. But before I left, I quietly wrote down the registration phone number. After I got home, I chopped vegetables in the kitchen while wrestling with myself. Joining the course would mean to mornings every week, when I could not stay home to handle the housework, and would need to make excuses to go out. Would Liu Ryan agree? Just thinking about having to ask her for this small bit of freedom, I suddenly felt a suffocating surge of anger. Anger at my own cowardice. The kitchen knife clattered rapidly against the cutting board, and the carrot was sliced into neat, thin pieces. Watching my own hands move, I suddenly realized that for these 20 years, I had been slicing myself into pieces too, giving one piece after another to my family, until there was almost nothing left. That evening, when Ruyan asked what I had planned for tomorrow, I heard myself say, "I'm going to the supermarket tomorrow morning for a big shopping trip. The fridge is almost empty." It was the first time I had lied for a personal reason. "Remember to buy some fruit. I've been constipated lately," Ruyan said without looking up, her fingers moving quickly across the tablet. Reviewing tomorrow's meeting proposals, the photography classroom at the Community Activity Center was more professional than I had imagined. A dozen middle-aged students sat in a circle, and the teacher was explaining aperture and shutter speed. I shrank into a corner, with the camera resting on my lap, feeling both eager and uneasy. "You're the new student, right?" The teacher suddenly pointed at me. "Please introduce yourself." Everyone in the room turned to look at me. My throat tightened. "My name is Fang Yuan. I'm just a beginner." "Teacher Fang, you're being modest." Aunt Wang had somehow appeared in the back row of the classroom. She used to be a professional travel blogger. I looked it up online. My face flushed red. I never expected Aunt Wang to be so enthusiastic. She actually went and searched up my past. A few murmurs of admiration rose in the classroom. People started whispering among themselves. "That's wonderful. We have a professional joining us," the teacher said enthusiastically. "Teacher Fang, would you be willing to share some practical experience?" Being called Teacher Fang felt strange. At home, I was Old Fang or Dad. Just a functional title, never carrying any respect. Now, with a group of people my own age looking at me with expectation, I actually felt a little lost. I haven't touched a camera in many years. I struggled to find the words. "I'm here to start learning again." "Teacher Fang, you're too modest." Aunt Wang chimed in again. "He's been all over the country, and even published a book." That was obviously an exaggeration. I've never published a book. I only contributed articles to a few travel magazines. But before I could clarify, the teacher was already warmly inviting me to show my work. With no other choice, I opened my phone and pulled up a few photos I had taken 10 years ago. They were my proudest. Series, a set of shots of ancient towns in Yunnan, once featured across a full-to-page spread in a magazine. Sincere exclamations of admiration rose in the classroom. A woman in a red coat even walked up to the screen to study it closely. "This photo is fantastic." She pointed to one photo of a stone arch bridge in the morning mist. The layers of fog in the photo were beautifully distinct, and the fishing boats in the foreground and the bridge in the distance formed a perfect balance. I looked at her in surprise. Most people's comments on a photo boil down to pretty or professional. Very few can point out the technical details so precisely. "You understand photography too?" "I'm familiar with it to some extent." She smiled and extended her hand. "My name is Sumeng. I'm a teacher at Sunshine Kindergarten. I usually like taking photos of the children during their activities." Her hand was warm and dry, with a firm grip, unlike Ruyan's carefully maintained delicate hands. Sumeng's hands had traces of paint and tiny scars. The hands of someone who clearly did a lot of hands-on work. "You should keep shooting." During the break, Sumeng handed me a cup of tea. "There's a story in your lens." I took the paper cup. The steam from the tea blurred my vision. "Things are a little complicated at home," I said vaguely. Sumeng didn't press further. Instead, she talked about the children at her kindergarten and how they saw the world through innocent eyes. "Sometimes I feel like I'm not the one teaching them, but they're teaching me how to rediscover the wonder in life." Her eyes sparkled as she spoke, her gestures lively, and she radiated a vitality I hadn't felt around me in a long time. In front of her, I found myself relaxing. I even told her a few funny stories from my early travels. "Next week, our kindergarten has a parent-child event." Before I left, Sumeng said, "If you have time, could you come help take photos? Our budget is limited, and we can't afford a professional photographer." I had meant to refuse, but looking at her expectant eyes, I nodded, almost against my own will. On the way home, my steps were lighter than usual, with the camera hanging around my neck. No longer felt like a burden. When I passed the residential garden, I stopped and took a few photos of the blooming roses. The world in the viewfinder suddenly felt fresh again. Every petal was worth recording. "Why were you gone so long?" Ruyan asked me as soon as I walked in. "I came back at noon to get some documents, and found the fridge still empty." Only then did I realize I had completely forgotten to buy groceries at the supermarket. I went to a photography class organized by the community. For some reason, this time, I chose to tell the truth. Ruyan frowned. The photography class is right at the activity center. Twice a week. I set down the camera, ready to face. Believe what you want. Unexpectedly, Ruyan only waved her hand. Oh, and next Thursday night, the company has an important banquet. The whole family has to attend. Prepare formal clothes. Remember to remind the kids. I froze at the mention of next Thursday. I have photography class that day. Ruyan was already heading for the study. Postpone it. This banquet is tied to my promotion. The absolute certainty in her tone shut me right up. 20 years of habit were like an invisible wall, smothering the tiny bit of self-awareness that had just started to surface. That night, I texted Sumeng, politely declining the kindergarten event. She replied quickly, saying she understood. Family comes first. We can work together another time if there is a chance. You could not read emotion from the text, but I still felt a pang of guilt. Lying in bed, listening to Ruyan's even breathing beside me, I quietly took out the camera and looked through the photos I had taken that day. The screen gave off a faint glow, lighting up the unconscious smile at the corner of my mouth. In the dark bedroom, this tiny screen became my own private secret world. In the week before the banquet, I was busy like a soldier about to go into battle. Ruyan's promotion hinged on this. I had to make sure every detail was flawless. The navy suit or the gray one. Thursday morning, I stood in the bedroom doorway holding up 2 suits and asked Ruyan what she thought was better. She looked up and gave them a quick glance. Her brow tightened slightly. Go with the gray. The blue one is too old. There was a barely noticeable edge of impatience in her voice, as if my question were wasting her precious time. I nodded silently and hung the blue suit back in the closet. I bought it on our wedding anniversary 10 years ago. I've only worn it 3 times. Ruyan was right. It really was outdated. That afternoon, I started getting ready 3 hours early. The steam from ironing my shirt blurred my eyes. I tied my tie 4 times before I was satisfied. Standing before the full-length mirror in the bathroom, I adjusted the knot of my tie. For a moment, I could not recognize the middle-aged man in the mirror, sharp in his suit. This outfit felt like a borrowed shell, utterly at odds with my usual apron-clad image. Dad, how does this tie look? Fang Yang was already at the doorway, holding a bright red tie in his hand. He was tall, already half a head taller than me, his broad shoulders filling out every sharp line of the suit. Too flashy. Pick a plain one instead. I turned around and took out a dark blue one from the drawer. It had a subtle pattern. Use this one. Fang Yang curled his lip, but took it anyway. Mom said the people coming tonight are all big shots, and she wants me to behave. He tied the tie in front of the mirror, and his practice movement surprised me. Zhang Yi's dad is the keynote speaker tonight, an investment heavyweight back from Wall Street. My fingers paused slightly as I adjusted his tie. Zhang Yi is Fang Yang's roommate. I had once seen his father at a parent-teacher conference. That elite aura was truly unforgettable. I almost brought up my own past, then swallowed the words again. Fang Yang would not want to hear my travel stories from 20 years ago. To him, those were probably just shabby little stories. What happened to you back then? Fang Yang asked offhandedly. His attention already shifted to the messages on his phone. Nothing. I patted his shoulder. Remember to remind Fang to leave at 6 sharp. Ruyan. The company had booked the banquet hall at the city's most upscale hotel. The crystal chandeliers lit the whole space as bright as day. Waiters moved through the room carrying silver trays. The clink of champagne glasses was crisp and pleasant. We arrived a little early. The guests had not all arrived yet. Director Liu, and this is. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit walked over. The sunlight fell on me briefly. My husband. Ruyan introduced me with a smile, her hand resting lightly on my arm, then withdrawing. Fang Yuan, this is Chairman Chen. He is one of our company's major shareholders. I held out my hand. Chairman Chen gave it a polite shake. So light I could barely feel it. Director Liu, you're really blessed. With someone at home keeping everything in perfect order, you can focus fully on your work, Chairman Chen said with a smile, though his eyes had already moved past me, toward the newly arrived guests at the entrance. For the next half hour, that scene repeated 6 or 7 times. Ruyan introduced me to her colleagues, and they responded with polite nods or handshakes, then quickly turned to more important people to talk to. I was seated at the family table near the corner, with several executives' wives and 2 children. So, you're Director Liu's husband? A woman in a Chanel suit gave me a long look. It is rare to see a male family member here. I gave an awkward smile, not knowing how to respond. The wives quickly turned to topics they knew well. The latest Hermes bags, Swiss anti-aging treatments, and private school admissions strategies. I sat in silence, like an outsider who had wandered into a women's tea party. "Dad, I'm going to find my classmates," Fang Yang whispered in my ear, then slipped away before I could answer. Fang Yu kept her head down, playing on her phone, only occasionally looking up to take a few photos and post them on social media. After the banquet officially began, the situation only got worse. I was seated far from the main table, with the families of several department managers. The keynote speaker was Zhang Yi's father. He stood under the spotlight, speaking fluently about global economic trends, every gesture radiating the confidence of a successful man. "My son and your Fang Yang are roommates." During the coffee break, Mr. Zhang came over and greeted me warmly. "I heard you used to be a travel blogger." I was surprised he even knew that. I nodded. "That was a long time ago." "That's a very interesting profession," he said with a smile. "When I was young, I also dreamed of traveling the world. Unfortunately, I chose a more practical path." There was no contempt in his tone, only a hint of genuine envy. Just as I was about to respond, Ruyan suddenly appeared. "Mr. Zhang, Chairman Wang wants to discuss that merger deal with you." She did not even look at me once, and led Mr. Zhang away. I walked alone to the drink table to get a beverage. By chance, I overheard two young employees talking next to me. "That's Director Liu's husband. I heard he's not the type to live off his wife. Yet the whole family still depends on her income." "Keep your voice down." But honestly, a grown man cooped up at home all day, picking up and dropping off the kids, cooking meals. What is the difference between him and a nanny? I froze in place, and the glass in my hand almost slipped. Just then, Ruyan walked over. The two employees immediately fell silent. "What are you talking about?" Ruyan asked. "Nothing, Director Liu. We were just saying. Tonight's speech was excellent." One of them stammered. Ruyan nodded. She did not ask further. Then she turned to me and said, "Fang Yuan, go get Fang Yang something to eat. He says he does not feel well. He wants something light." He had clearly heard those words. I looked at his profile, hoping he would say something, defend me even once. But he just kept urging me on, looking at me impatiently, waiting for me to carry out his order. At that moment, I felt something break inside my chest. Tiny cracks spread through my whole body. On the way home after the banquet, the car fell silent. Fang Yang excitedly described his conversation with Mr. Zhang. Fang Yu kept complaining about the boring night. Ruyan was focused on replying to work emails. Her fingers slid quickly across her phone screen. "I want to get back into my old line of work," I suddenly said, my voice sounding especially clear in the quiet car. "As a travel blogger." Ruyan's fingers paused for 1 second. Then she kept typing. "Don't joke. I'm serious. The kids are all grown now. The family does not need me watching over everything around the clock. I want to start over." Ruyan finally put down her phone and turned to look at me. "You know how fierce the competition is in the travel blogger market now. What worked 20 years ago is long outdated. And who is going to handle the cooking and everything at home? Fang Yang is about to start college. The applications need someone to keep an eye on them. I can handle both." My knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. "Or hire a part-time helper?" "We do not need a part-time helper. We need a stable home environment." Ruyan's tone turned hard. "Fang Yuan, be realistic. You're already 46, not 26. That little bit of travel experience you have, what does it amount to in this day and age?" I fell silent. In the rearview mirror, I saw Fang Yang curl his lip. Zhang Yi's dad said, "A man without a career is like a man without a backbone." Fang Yang suddenly cut in. "He's taking Zhang Yi to New York next week for Morgan Chase's open day." The temperature in the car seemed to drop several degrees. Ruyan shot Fang Yang a stern look and said, but she did not refute his words. My heart sank to the bottom. So, in the children's eyes, I was also a man without a backbone. When we got home, Ruyan went straight to the study and kept working. The kids each went back to their rooms. I stood in the middle of the living room, slowly loosening my tie, feeling as if I had taken off a set of shackles. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. At 2 a.m., I quietly got up and went out onto the balcony. The city's lights were still dazzling, but they had lost their color in my eyes. I took out the old camera I had hidden in the drawer and looked through the yellowed photos. The young man in the photos was smiling brightly, his eyes sparkling with hope for the future. Where had that young man gone? Had he been worn down by the endless grind of housework? or slowly smothered by his family's contempt? I turned on the computer and logged into a blog account that had been untouched for years. The last update dated back to May 2nd, 2008. An unfinished travelogue draft lay quietly in the draft folder. I created a new document. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time. Finally, I typed the title, Midlife Breakaway, a homemaker's journey of self-discovery. By the time I finished, dawn was faintly breaking. I clicked save, not publish. It was not time yet, but I knew something had already quietly changed. 12:40 a.m. After making sure Ruyan was fast asleep, I got up as quietly as I could. In the dark, I took my glasses from the nightstand. Ruyan's steady breathing was especially clear in the dark. I felt like a spy sneaking into enemy lines. Every move was careful. I had oiled the study door on purpose, so it would not make a sound when opened. I switched on the desk lamp, dimmed it to the lowest setting, just enough to see the keyboard, without too much light leaking through the crack under the door. The hum of the computer starting up made my heart race. I hurriedly covered the vent with a pillow. The blog draft I had written last night was still on the screen. I read it through again. Some passages now seemed overly sentimental, but the real feelings in every line still tightened my chest. I deleted a few exaggerated metaphors. I adjusted the structure. Then I took a deep breath and clicked publish. It was the first time in 10 years I had published anything publicly. The page refreshed. The moment the success message appeared, a surge like electricity shot up from my spine to the back of my head. I stared at the screen, half dazed, with the strange feeling that the young man named Xing was nodding to me now. Through the mist of time, the blogging platform had changed completely. I spent an hour getting used to the new features and studying the tricks until my eyes burned. Then I stopped before shutting down the computer. On impulse, I refreshed the page. There were already 3 views and 1 comment. Very authentic writing. Looking forward to the next update, commented a user named Wayfarer. That simple line made my nose sting. 10 years. Besides utility bills and the kids' parent-teacher conferences, my inbox had almost nothing else in it. And now, a stranger was willing to spend time reading my writing and leave encouragement. I buried my face in my hands and took a few deep breaths before I finally calmed down. Outside the window, a full moon hung over the wood on treetops. The cold moonlight filtered through the blinds and painted striped shadows on the floor. I suddenly remembered being in Xing in my 20s, camping outdoors. The moon I saw then was just as round, just as bright, but back then I was surrounded by vast, uninhabited land, with endless stars overhead. Not this 12-square-meter study. When I got back to bed, it was already 3 a.m. Ruyan turned over and mumbled, "What time is it?" "Still early. Go back to sleep," I answered softly, my heart pounding. She made a soft murmur and fell back into a deep sleep. I lay there with my eyes half closed until dawn. My mind was full of possibilities for the future. Photography class became the part of my week I looked forward to most. Xing was an interesting classmate. She had a unique view of photography she could always find in my work, strengths even I had not noticed. Teacher Fang, next Saturday our kindergarten is having a parent-child sports day. Could we ask you to help take photos? After the 3rd class, Xing stopped me. Our principal has seen the photos you took, especially liked them. I hesitated. Saturdays were usually family days. Ruyan rarely got a day off. She would want the whole family to eat lunch together, then go over the schedule for the next week. "I can pay you. It is not much, though," Xing added, her cheeks slightly flushed. "No payment needed," I blurted out. "I will go." The decision came so suddenly that even I was surprised. Xing's eyes lit up. "Thank you so much." She excitedly grabbed my arm, gave it a shake, then let go at once, as if realizing the gesture had been to intimate. On the way home, I kept thinking about how to explain my absence on Saturday to Ruyan. Lying would make my stomach twist, but telling the truth might start an argument. In the end, I decided to tell part of the truth. A community event needed a volunteer photographer, and I had already agreed. On Saturday morning, I arrived at the kindergarten half an hour early. Xing was setting up props on the playground. When she saw me, she waved and called out, "Teacher Fang." In the sunlight, she looked like a college student. Her hair was tied in a high ponytail, and the sleeves of her tracksuit were rolled up to her elbows, showing tan, wheat-colored arms. She jogged over and handed me a bottle of mineral water. "It is hot. Please drink more water. The sports day starts at 9. Parents were arriving one after another with their children. I adjusted the camera settings, tested the lighting, and quickly got into work mode. The world through the viewfinder was always more vivid than what the naked eye could see. The tenderness of a father crouching down to tie his child's shoelaces. The fierce focus of a little girl gritting her teeth as she sprinted. Xing crouched at the finish line, her arms open to welcome every child's smile. I forgot the time, forgot my family duties, and even forgot my own age. I focused completely on capturing every moment. When the last event ended, I realized it was already 1:30 in the afternoon. There were 3 missed calls on my phone, all from Ruyan. Xing leaned over to look at the camera screen. The scent of shampoo drifted into my nose. A floral, fruity fragrance. It was completely different from the expensive perfume Ruyan usually wore. I showed her a few selected photos. She gasped again and again. This composition is amazing. Oh my God, you made me look so good. I did not even notice this moment myself. Other teachers and parents gathered around too, their praise rising one after another. A professional really is different. Could you send it to me? This one has so much feeling. My face grew hot. That long-lost feeling of being recognized made me dizzy. Teacher Fang, you must have been a professional photographer before, right? The principal asked. She was a kind woman in her 60s. Just an amateur hobby. I answered modestly, but I could not stop my lips from curling up. Before I left, Xing pressed an envelope into my hand. It is just a small token of thanks. Please, you must accept it. I could not refuse. So I took it. There must have been a few hundred yuan in that thin envelope. It was the first money I'd earned on my own in 20 years. By the time I got home, it was already 4 p.m. Ruyan was sitting on the living room sofa, with cold takeout in front of her. Where did you go? You did not even answer your phone. Her voice was as cold as ice. It was the kindergarten sports day. It was probably too noisy there. So I did not hear the phone. I set down my camera bag, my throat tight. What important thing? That made you ignore even calls from home? Fang Yang has a mock exam next week. He needs you to help sort out his study materials. Fang Yu's dance competition has been rescheduled too. These things are no less important than some kindergarten event. I took a deep breath. I agreed. I can't go back on my word to other people. Ruyan looked me up and down, her brow furrowed tighter and tighter. You've been acting really off lately. Is something wrong with your health? I'll take a day off tomorrow and take you to the hospital for a full checkup. That reaction was completely unexpected. I froze. I'm perfectly healthy. Then why are you suddenly so obsessed with photography? Getting up in the middle of the night to write things. Last week I even caught you browsing travel websites. Ryan's eyes were sharp, as if she wanted to see right through my act. Menopausal depression. You have to go to the hospital tomorrow. Only then did I realize that my unusual behavior in her eyes might be a sign of a health problem. In a way, that actually gave me the perfect cover. I'm really fine. I just have not been sleeping well lately. I needed something to pass the time. I gave a deliberately relaxed smile. Next week I'll go to the community hospital for a routine checkup. You're busy with work, so you don't need to come with me. She did not keep pushing. At dinner, she kept shooting me curious looks now and then. I pretended not to notice. I focused on serving food to Fang Yu. Dad, this broccoli. You made it way better than the school cafeteria, Fang Yu said suddenly. That simple praise made my hand shake. I nearly dropped the dish on the table. Fang Yu is 17 this year. She is in the rebellious phase. Usually, she either nitpicks my cooking or ignores it completely. Thanks. I just added a little garlic and oyster sauce. I stammered. I sounded like a grade school kid who'd been praised by the teacher. After dinner, Fang Yu unusually followed me into the kitchen. Dad, can we talk? I set down the plate I was wiping. What's wrong? She bit her lower lip, fingers twisting the hem of her clothes. It's just that there seems to be a boy in my class who likes me. I did not react at first. Fang Yu had always been closer to Ruyan since childhood, especially after hitting puberty. And she almost never shared personal problems with me. What is he like? I asked carefully, afraid I might say the wrong thing and scare her off. It was a rare sign of trust. He's pretty outstanding, but a little arrogant. Fang Yu's voice got quieter and quieter. I do not know how to respond to him. I took off my rubber gloves and motioned for her to sit by the dining table. 20 years ago, the social experience I had built up as a travel blogger suddenly came in handy. I did not give advice right away, but first listened patiently as she described the details. Then I shared some experiences from when I was younger, dealing with similar situations, leaving out the parts that might reveal my past identity. So, you do not need to rush your decision, I said at last. The one truly worth it will respect your pace. Fang Yu nodded thoughtfully. Then she suddenly asked, Dad, what were you like when you were young? That question hit me in the chest like a dull blow. My daughter is 17, and yet she knew nothing about the first half of her father's life. I had been to many places, met many people. I chose my words carefully. Then I met you, and Mom settled down. Are you happy? She looked straight into my eyes, her gaze so clear that I had nowhere to hide. The kitchen clock ticked away. I could hear my own heartbeat. Most of the time, I am happy, especially seeing you and Fang Yang grow up healthy. That answer was half true, half false. Fang Yu seemed to sense something, but she did not press further. When she stood up, she gave me a light hug. That sudden embrace left me frozen in place. Good night, Dad. After saying that, she turned and went upstairs, leaving me alone in the kitchen, still holding the half-wet dishcloth in my hand. That night, after everyone in the family had gone to bed, I slipped into the study again. The blog had already passed 100 views. There were also more than a dozen comments. I replied to a few comments, then wrote a new article. This time, it was a piece about photographing the parent-child sports day. After clicking publish, I hesitated for a moment. Then I opened my email. I wrote to an editor at a travel magazine I had worked with before, sending a brief message, asking whether they were still accepting freelance writing. The sender name was Xing. That identity, dormant for so many years, was waking up little by little. Outside the window, the early summer night breeze stirred the plane trees, their leaves rustling. It sounded like distant applause. Teacher Fang, I have good news. Su Meng's voice came from the other end of the phone, clear and bright, like birdsong at dawn. I instinctively moved the phone a little farther away, afraid Fang Yang, who was watching TV in the living room, would hear. What's up? I lowered my voice and quickly walked to the balcony. The Community Cultural Center is going to hold a photography exhibition next month. I recommended the set of photos you took at the sports day. The organizers were especially interested. They want to choose 5 for the exhibition. There will even be awards. I gripped the phone, momentarily speechless. The jasmine on the balcony was in full bloom, its fragrance so rich it was almost dizzying. Teacher Fang, are you listening? Yes, I am. I just glanced back at the living room. Fang Yang was focused on the basketball game on TV, not noticing me at all. This is so sudden. Those photos were just casual snapshots. They were not just casual snapshots. Su Meng interrupted me anxiously. Honestly, your skill with composition and capturing moments is absolutely professional level. For the exhibition, we need you to provide a brief description of the work and a self-introduction. Can you email them to me by next Wednesday? After hanging up the phone, I stood on the balcony and took a deep breath. The June sun scorched my back, but I felt cold in waves. Being in the exhibition meant my name and work would be made public, and Ruyan and the children might see it. But on the other hand, that feeling of being recognized made my heart race. That night, while waiting for Ruyan to go shower, I secretly opened the computer and pulled up the sports day photos. After comparing them over and over, I chose 5. They were the most moving ones. One showed a father carrying his daughter in the warm scene of a 3-legged race. One showed a little boy bursting across the finish line, cheering in victory. One showed Su Meng crouching down, wiping tears from a crying little girl. In a tender moment, the other 2 were close-ups of parent-child interactions, their expressions and body language full of dramatic tension. When I wrote the work description, my fingers flew over the keyboard. Ideas poured out like a spring. These photos moved people, precisely because they captured the most genuine emotional expression, the kind I rarely experienced in my own family. Unreserved, love, and support. When it came time for the self-introduction, I paused. How should I define myself? Homemaker, former travel blogger, photography enthusiast. In the end, I simply wrote, Fang Yuan, amateur photographer, skilled at capturing the genuine emotions in everyday life. After hitting send, a strange sense of relief rose in my chest. No matter what the outcome was, this was the first time in 20 years that I had taken part in a public event as myself. And not just Liu Ryan's husband, or Fang Yang and Fang Yu's father. The day the photography exhibition notice was posted on the community bulletin board, I pretended to pass by casually, my heart pounding wildly. My 5 photos were placed right in the center of the exhibition. Beside them was the label Fang Yuan's Parent-Child Moments series. What shocked me even more was that the shot of Su Meng comforting the little girl had been marked with a red outstanding award tag. Teacher Fang, congratulations. Aunt Wang poked her head out from the neighborhood committee window and said, I told you your photos were good. You have to come to the awards ceremony next Saturday. I mumbled an answer and hurried away. This small honor left me both excited and frightened. On the way home, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Su Meng. Saw the exhibition. It's great. I'll be there to cheer you on at the awards ceremony. I stared at the screen, the corners of my mouth lifting without me noticing. That feeling of being appreciated and expected had felt like something from another lifetime for a long time. Ruyan had been even busier lately. The project she was in charge of had entered a critical stage. Often, I'd already fallen asleep, and she still hadn't come home. When I woke up, she had already left. We were like two tenants on staggered shifts, sharing the same space, but rarely crossing paths. The notes she left me had changed from remember to pay the water and electricity bills to you go to next week's parent-teacher conference. I'm away on a business trip. Need a new suit, buy it, and put it in his closet. That distance actually gave me more freedom. I started writing during the day, no longer confined to late-night writing for that travel magazine. The magazine editor replied to my email, inviting me to write a travelogue about hidden corners of the city. I accepted it. An obscure old trail. I spent the afternoons visiting and photographing it in person. The day the article was published, I bought 3 copies of the magazine. I hid one in the study drawer, put one under my pillow, and mailed the last one to my mother. It was the first time in 20 years that one of my pieces had actually made it into print, even though the fee was only 800 yuan. I looked at that remittance slip again and again, as if it were some priceless treasure. My blog readership was also growing steadily. An online user named Wayfarer left a comment almost every day. Sometimes it was encouragement, sometimes it was thoughtful advice. I gradually got into the habit of updating twice a week. My post grew from nostalgic essays to observations about my life now. I even tried writing some fiction, projecting the desires I could not express in real life, and the anger onto the characters. Dad, you seem really happy lately. One evening after dinner, Fang Yu suddenly asked. Ruyan was working overtime again. There were only 3 of us at the table. Really? I touched my face. I didn't realize it showed that clearly. Humming while cooking? Fang Yu tilted her head at me. You never used to do that. Fang Yang chimed in. It must be Mom. Her project is almost wrapped up. That must be why the house feels so lively. I did not correct her. In fact, I had no idea how Ruyan's project was going. I had no idea at all. She had not shared anything about work with me for a long time. Dad, did you really go to that many places before? Fang Yu continued asking. Last time, I found an album behind your bookshelf. My heart gave a hard jolt. That album was something I had secretly taken from the storage room. I'd hidden it behind a row of cookbooks. When I was young, I liked to wander everywhere. I answered lightly, while watching her reaction. Those photos. Fang Yu's eyes lit up. That is so cool. You rode a camel in the desert and camped at the foot of snowy mountains. Why did you never show us? Fang Yang snorted with disdain. What is so cool about traveling? Zhang Yi's dad took him to tour Goldman Sachs' Hong Kong office last week. That is what is really cool. All you care about is money and status. Fang Yu rolled her eyes. Dad's photos have culture and history. They are way more interesting than those investment banking snobs. Seeing the 2 of them about to argue, I quickly stepped in to smooth things over. All right. Everyone has their own path. But inside, Fang Yu's admiration sent a warm current through me. That night, Fang Yu quietly came to the study. Our school literary club is putting out an issue of the magazine, and I'm in charge of the photography column. Can you teach me how to take photos that tell a story? I looked at her in surprise. This was the first time Fang Yu had ever come to me for help on her own, instead of going straight to her mother. Of course, I worked hard to keep the excitement out of my voice. I took out my camera. We started with composition. Over the next 2 weeks, Fang Yu and I had a little secret of our own. Every evening after dinner, we would spend half an hour talking about photography techniques. Sometimes we would even go out into the neighborhood to practice. She learned quickly. Her eye and sense of aesthetics were remarkable. Watching her carefully adjust the camera settings, I felt as if I were looking at my younger self. At the same time, Fang Yang's college application had entered the final sprint. Ruyan told me to organize all the family documents and supporting materials needed. I spent 3 all-nighters, making sure every document was complete and correct. I even drafted the recommendation letter for him. Everything is here. I put it all in this folder. On Saturday morning, I handed the thick folder to Fang Yang, who was eating breakfast. Remember to check it once more. It has to be mailed out on Monday. Fang Yang did not even look up and kept scrolling on his phone. Your dad stayed up for several nights putting this together for you. Fang Yu said, unable to bear it anymore. She cut in, and Fang Yang finally looked up. He said a perfunctory, thanks for the trouble. Then he turned to Liu Ruyan and said, Mom. Zhang Yi's dad said he could help write me an extra recommendation letter. He is very well known on Wall Street. Liu Ruyan nodded. That's good. Remember to thank him properly. She quickly finished her coffee, picked up her briefcase, and said, I have to go to the office today. Fang Yu's dance competition. Let your dad go. After the door closed, Fang Yu gave me a sympathetic look, while Fang Yang had already retreated into his world of screens. I stood by the dining table, suddenly and clearly realizing that in this family, my worth was measured only by how much service I could provide. Like a well-functioning appliance, I was only remembered when needed, and then forgotten in the corner after use. On the day of the award ceremony, I told the family I was going to the supermarket to shop, but actually slipped away to the community cultural center. The small exhibition hall was packed with people, mostly contestants and their family and friends. A few spectators were also standing in front of my photos, pointing and talking about the series. Teacher Fang, over here. Su Meng waved to me from across the crowd. She was wearing a light blue dress today, with her hair pinned up, looking more mature than usual. Congratulations on winning an award. She handed me a small bouquet of lilies. I bought the flowers on my own. An award winner should have that sense of ceremony. I took the bouquet awkwardly, and the rich fragrance drifted into my nose. For no reason, my eyes began to burn. When was the last time I received flowers? Probably at my wedding, 20 years ago. The award segment was simple and warm. When the host called my name, Su Meng cheered softly beside me, drawing kind laughter from the people around us. I accepted the small crystal trophy, my palm slick with sweat. Please say a few words as the winner. The host handed me the microphone, standing under the spotlight. My throat tightened. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to the person who recommended me. Teacher Su. I caught Su Meng's encouraging gaze. Photography was a hobby of mine when I was young. Picking up the camera again helped me rediscover some things I thought I had already lost. Applause rose from the audience. After returning to my seat, Su Meng asked softly, What did you find again? I looked at the trophy in my hands. The spots of light it cast danced on the wall. After the ceremony, Su Meng insisted on taking me to a nearby cafe. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows onto the wooden table. She excitedly flipped through the brochure the organizers had handed out and kept praising it. Teacher Fang, have you really never thought about holding a solo exhibition or starting a photography class? She asked suddenly. Your work has more soul than a lot of so-called professional photographers. I shook my head. It's just a hobby. I have too many family responsibilities. But you're so talented. Su Meng set down her coffee cup. Her voice rose with excitement. Do you know? The principal said the series of photos you took reminded her of her late husband. It was the first time she'd ever seen someone capture so accurately an educator's love for children. I froze. I had never imagined my photos could move people that deeply. I'll think about it, I finally said. But I knew clearly how hard it was to find balance between family and self. On the way home, I teetered to the supermarket and bought the salmon Liu Ruyan liked. While I was pushing the cart and waiting to pay, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. May I ask if this is Xing? The caller introduced herself as an editor from a travel website. She had seen my article in the magazine and wanted to invite me to become a contracted author with regular submissions. Standing in the noisy supermarket aisle, one hand on my phone and the other on the cart, I suddenly realized life was quietly turning toward an unexpected direction. July 18th, our wedding anniversary. Liu Ruyan's calendar had never had this day on it. For 20 years, I had been the one to remember it and plan the celebration. In the first few years, she would still be moved. Later, it became a routine thank you. In recent years, she often forgot, only remembering when I reminded her. This year, I decided to do something different. At 5 a.m., I got up quietly, without turning on the lights. I dressed by the faint glow of my phone screen. In the kitchen, I took out the ingredients I had secretly bought the day before. Fresh black tiger shrimp, plump scallops, a prime steak, and Liu Ruyan's favorite French oysters. These were not dishes we usually had at home. I spent 3 hours preparing a lavish breakfast. The shrimp dumplings were hand-chopped and wrapped fresh. The scallops were pan-seared in butter, crisp outside and tender inside. The steak was perfectly medium. The oysters were served with a homemade red wine vinegar sauce. I spread a white embroidered tablecloth over the table and set out the silver cutlery. In the crystal vase, I placed a single red rose. 20 would have been too much. One was enough to show my feelings without making her uncomfortable. At 7:30, Ruyan appeared at the stairs on time, in a crisp business suit, her hair already pinned up. When she saw the table, she froze. Is today some special day? She frowned, thinking, someone's birthday. My heart sank a little, but I quickly composed myself. Our wedding anniversary. She slapped her forehead. Sorry, I've been swamped wrapping up the project lately. She hurried to the table, picked up the rose, and smelled it. Thank you for always being so thoughtful. She ate quickly, checking her watch now and then. The oysters are very fresh. She praised as she ate, but her eyes had already drifted to the phone lying off to the side. The board meeting today is going to discuss my promotion. I know. Good luck. I poured her a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice. Ruyan took one sip and set the glass down. I need to get to the office early to prepare. As she stood up, she brushed a hurried kiss across my cheek. The sound of the door closing that evening was especially jarring in the quiet house. I sat at the dining table, looking at the oysters that had barely been touched, and the orange juice I had only sipped once. I suddenly lost my appetite. After cleaning up the breakfast mess, I started preparing dinner. This time, I planned to make Western food. The appetizer was cream of bamboo shoot soup. The main course was braised beef and red wine. The side dishes were baked potatoes and a mixed vegetable salad. Dessert was tiramisu. Every dish was something Ruyan liked, though it was troublesome to prepare. It only came once a year. At 4 p.m., I got a text from Ruyan. I have an important client dinner tonight. I'm not coming home for dinner. You two eat first. Don't wait for me. I stared at the phone screen, my finger hovering over the keyboard, not knowing how to reply. In the end, I only sent back a simple okay. Then I went back to cutting the beef I had already prepared. At 6, Fang texted to say he was going to a classmate's place to discuss a project and would not be coming home for dinner. As for Fang, she had made plans to go shopping with friends from the dance team. What had originally been a planned family dinner turned into dinner for one. At 1 o'clock, I ranged the carefully prepared dishes on the table one by one. I lit the candles. I opened a bottle of reserved red wine. The crystal glasses shimmered with a warm glow in the candlelight. I sat alone at one end of the long table, staring at the empty chair opposite me. At 8 o'clock, half the candles had burned down. The red wine in the glass was gradually losing its bubbles. I sent Ruyan a message. Is the dinner over yet? No reply. At 9 o'clock, I poured the cold soup into the trash. I put the beef back into the refrigerator. The tiramisu lay untouched on the glass plate, the cocoa powder on top already starting to clump from moisture. At 10 o'clock, I opened that bottle of red wine and drank alone. The alcohol warmed my stomach, but it could not warm my cold fingertips. At 11:15, the sound of the lock turning woke me. I realized I had fallen asleep, face down on the dining table. The candles had long since burned out. The wine bottle was half empty. Ruyan walked into the dining room, still awake, with her high heels in her hand, her face flushed from the alcohol. That client was impossible. They kept dragging it out until now. When she saw the table setting, she suddenly stopped. Oh my God, today is our wedding anniversary, I said calmly, my voice steadier than I expected. Ruyan set down her shoes and walked over to me. I'm sorry, I completely forgot. This project is just too important. She reached out as if to touch my shoulder, then pulled back. You went in so much trouble. It's fine. I stood up and started clearing the dishes. Work comes first. Don't do this, Ruyan said, grabbing my hand. I know you're angry. I'll make it up to you tomorrow, okay? I'll take a day off and spend it with you. I shook my head. Gently, I pulled my hand free. Really, no need. Go do your work. My tone was so calm that even I found it strange. I'm going to bed. You should get some rest too. Just as I was going upstairs, I could feel Ruyan's confused gaze fall on my back. She didn't understand why this time I had not, as usual, to voice disappointment or complaints. Maybe because of that, she felt a hint of unease for the first time. In the bathroom, I stood under the shower, letting the hot water wash over my body. The mirror was soon covered in steam, blurring my reflection. That was fine. I did not have to face that man whose eyes were full of disappointment. In bed, I listened to the sounds of Liu Ruyan washing up, and then the rustle of her sorting tomorrow's clothes in the dressing room. When the mattress sank under her weight, I pretended to be asleep. Fang Yuan, Liu Ruyan called softly. Seeing no response from me, she turned over and slept facing away from me. In the darkness, I opened my eyes, staring at the shadows on the ceiling. 20 years of marriage flashed through my mind like a revolving lantern. In the early years, we loved each other. Back then, Liu Ruyan was just starting out, and my travel blog also brought in steady income. We split the housework and bills evenly. After Fang Yang was born, Liu Ruyan's career took off, and I naturally took on more child-rearing responsibilities. By the time Fang Yu was born, our roles had already solidified. She was a successful career woman. I was the homemaker handling the logistics. There was nothing wrong with that arrangement itself. The problem was that little by little my efforts were taken for granted. My needs were automatically pushed to the end. My dreams were dismissed as unrealistic fantasies. I became the heir in this house. Everywhere, yet unseen. Notice only when I was missing. At 3 a.m., Liu Ruyan was sleeping deeply. I quietly got up, took half a bottle of red wine to the balcony. The summer night breeze still carried the day's warmth. Far away, car headlights occasionally streaked by. I poured myself a glass of wine. I opened my phone album and scrolled to the old and photos at the very bottom. In those photos, I stood before all kinds of scenery. Snowy peaks, deserts, seashores, and ancient cities. Every photo caught me smiling brightly, and my eyes sparkled with love for life. That was what I looked like before I turned 30. A man who had roamed across most of China. A travel blogger with a little fame. A young man full of hope for the future. Now I took a sip of wine, and bitterness spread across my tongue. Now I was a 46-year-old invisible man. A husband whose wedding anniversary could be forgotten. In the children's eyes, a father without a career had no standing. My phone vibrated. It was a message from the travel site editor. Mr. Xing, our editor-in-chief really likes your writing style. We would like to invite you to join next month's Hidden China feature project, which requires a 2-week business trip. Are you interested? I stared at that message for a long time. A 2-week business trip meant leaving home. It would break 20 years of family routine. Would Liu Ruyan agree? What would the children think? But on the other hand, this was a rare chance to pick my career back up. After much hesitation, I replied, I'm honored. I need to discuss the itinerary with my family. I'll get back to you tomorrow. After sending that message, I dug out a number from my contacts that I had not called in years. Old Zhu, my photography partner back then. It was already past midnight, but I needed to hear an old friend's voice. The phone rang for a long time before he picked up. Hello. Old Zhu's voice was thick with sleepy annoyance. Old Zhu, it's me. Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan. The voice on the other end woke instantly. Oh my god, we haven't been in touch for years. 10 years, 15? About the same. I laughed softly. Sorry for bothering you so late. It's fine. People in our line of work are used to staying up late. Old Zhu said with a hearty laugh. Why are you thinking of me all of a sudden? I briefly told him I had recently picked photography and writing back up, and about the invitation from the travel website. Old Zhu fell silent for a couple of seconds. Old Fang, you have to come back. His voice suddenly turned serious. The travel content market now is more than 10 times bigger than it was back then. Short videos, live streams, and written posts all combined. There are so many ways to do it. If you write well and have a solid photography foundation, you can absolutely carve out a path for yourself. But I'm 46. Old Zhu cut me off. I know several people who only started doing independent online content creation in their 50s. They have millions of followers now. Age is not the problem. The question is whether you can drop the baggage and start over. We talked for nearly an hour. Old Zhu told me how the industry was doing now. The monetization channels, the partner platforms, and the amount of information left me dizzy. And for reasons I couldn't explain, excited to. When I hung up, the sky in the east was already turning pale. Back in bed, I tossed and turned. On one side was a stable but suffocating family role. On the other, an unknown but free possibility. This choice had hung over my head like a blade for 20 years, and now it was finally about to fall. 3 days later, Liu Ruyan's promotion notice finally came through. Group Vice President, she would oversee the entire marketing division. It was a major leap in her career. Her salary would double outright, with equity incentives on top. It had to be celebrated. Liu Ruyan even came home early from work, a rare thing. carrying a bottle of champagne. I ordered a lavish seafood dinner. It'll be delivered at 6. Fang Yang and Fang Yu were excited too, crowding around Liu Ruyan with questions. How big is the new office? What car comes with it? What's the annual salary? I stood at the kitchen doorway, watching the warm, cheerful scene before me. Liu Ruyan was radiant, more energized than the night she came home from that anniversary dinner, full of life. The children's eyes were shining with admiration. That was a look they had never once given me. Old Fang, stop fussing. Come celebrate with us. Liu Ruyan waved me over, her face lit with a rare brilliant smile. I walked over and took the champagne flute she handed me. Golden liquid shimmered in the glass, filled with delicate bubbles, just like the dreams I once had, now shattered. Congratulations, I said, raising my glass. My voice was drowned out by the family's cheers. Liu Ruyan talked endlessly about the future, buying a bigger house, sending Fang Yang to the United States for graduate school, and getting Fang Yu a good car. Everyone was lost in visions of a bright future, except me. I sipped my champagne, but my thoughts drifted far away. The Yunnan tea horse road hiking route Old Zhu mentioned, the Chuangxi Hidden Gems trip the travel site proposed, and what I'd always wanted to write myself, a documentary-style portrait of life on the city's margins. Those possibilities, like champagne bubbles, rose in my mind. So, did my resolve. Dad, why are you so distracted? Fang Yu suddenly asked me. Nothing. I'm just happy for your mom. I forced a smile. Liu Ruyan glanced at me, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But Fang Yang's question quickly pulled her attention away again. After dinner, I took it upon myself to clean up. Liu Ruyan even offered to help, which was unheard of, but I turned her down. Go and rest. Today, you're the star. Through the kitchen window, I saw Liu Ruyan in the living room, showing the children photos of her new office. The three of them kept laughing. I watched the champagne flutes, and suddenly realized that this family actually did not need me. What they needed was a cook and a cleaner, a housekeeper, but not necessarily Fang Yuan. That realization struck me like lightning, painful but crystal clear. For the first time in 20 years, I saw my situation so clearly. Late at night, I stood on the balcony, turning the empty wine glass in my hand. The city lights in the distance twinkled like stars. Behind every light was a family, a story. How would my story continue? Was I going to keep being the shadow behind Liu Ruyan, or return to the Xing who once roamed far and wide? Moonlight flickered in the glass at my fingertips. I took a deep breath and made my decision. The family meeting was set for 3 on Saturday afternoon. I had prepared in advance and got my thoughts in order. I printed out a draft of the divorce agreement. I even booked a room in a small hotel nearby. I made our last family dinner. Every dish was one of their favorites. Liu Ruyan's steamed sea bass, Fang Yang's braised pork, and Fang Yu's garlic broccoli. A familiar aroma drifted through the kitchen. The clatter of the spatula against the wok sounded like a farewell song. Why is it so lavish today? Liu Ruyan walked into the kitchen, watching me stir-fry the braised pork from behind. She was home today, dressed in casual clothes, a rare sight. Her hair was tied up casually, and she looked much younger than usual. It's the weekend. I didn't turn around, afraid she would see the strangeness in my eyes. At the table, Fang Yang was wolfing down his food. Fang Yu was excitedly talking about the latest news from school. Liu Ruyan chimed in from time to time, and the atmosphere was relaxed and cheerful. I watched the scene in silence, trying to etch it into memory. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows and fell across the center of the dining table. The crystal glasses refracted tiny points of light. My family wore unguarded smiles. After dinner, Liu Ruyan suggested we go see the new Marvel movie. Fang Yang immediately agreed. Although Fang Yu complained that superhero movies were too childish, she agreed to. You guys go ahead. I said I'd clean up, and that I had something I wanted to discuss with everyone. Liu Ruyan gave me a puzzled look. What is it? Can't you say it now? Wait until you get back. I lowered my head and cleared the dishes, avoiding her gaze. After they left, I thoroughly cleaned the kitchen, polishing every pot until it gleamed. I left not a trace of grease on the stove. Then I went upstairs to pack. One suitcase held my seasonal clothes. One backpack held my laptop and camera. And one cardboard box held a few small things. I quietly tucked them into a corner of the garage. I didn't take much. After all, over these 20 years, most of the things in this house had not been bought by me. At 3 sharp, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and opened the door. The whole family was standing there. Fang Yang was still holding a half-eaten bucket of popcorn. What's so formal? Ruyan asked with a smile. Clearly, she was still caught up in the easy comfort of the movie and family time. Let's talk in the living room. I stepped aside to let them in. In the living room, the sun was already slanting west, falling across that expensive Persian rug. Ruyan sat in the armchair, and the children squeezed together on the sofa. I chose to stand, facing them. I decided to get a divorce. When I said those words, my voice was calmer than I expected. The air froze. Fang Yang's popcorn bucket fell to the floor. A few kernels rolled onto the carpet. Fang Yu covered her mouth. Her eyes widened. Ruyan's expression shifted from confusion to shock, and finally settled into disbelief. Are you kidding me? Her voice turned sharp. I shook my head. I picked up the document from the coffee table and handed it to her. This is a draft of the divorce agreement. Your lawyer can revise it. I am only taking my personal belongings and that old camera. I do not want the property or the savings. Ruyan did not take the document. Instead, she shot to her feet. Why? Just because I forgot our wedding anniversary. I can apologize. I can make it up to you. It is not because of that. I cut her off because I have been worn down in this marriage for 20 years. What nonsense are you talking about? Ruyan's voice began to tremble. How exactly has this family mistreated you? You live in a luxury home and drive a good car, and you do not have to struggle to make a living. So many people envy your life. I looked at her red-rimmed eyes, and a sharp pain hit my chest. But this time, I did not back down. Materially, it really was good. But spiritually, I have been suffocating. Ruyan, do you remember the last time I was truly happy? Do you even know what color I like? Have you noticed what I have been doing these past 6 months? Ruyan opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her expression told me she could not answer a single one of those questions. Dad, don't do this. Fang Yu whispered, tears already streaming down her face. We are a family. I am still your father, but I am no longer your mother's husband. I turned to the children. This is not your fault. It is a problem between me and Mom. Fang Yang suddenly stood up, his face dark. Is it because of that kindergarten teacher? I knew something was off between you two. I stared at my son in shock. Su Meng is just a regular friend. Fang Yang, ever since you were little. When have I ever not taken care of you with everything I had? Is that really how you see your father? Then why are you trying to destroy this family? Fang Yang almost shouted it. Do you know what my classmates will think of me? That his dad is a kept man, and that he abandoned his mom. Those words stabbed into my heart like a knife. I gripped the back of the sofa, steadying myself. So in your eyes, I have always been a kept man. Ruyan snapped sharply at Fang Yang. But it was already too late. Is that so? Fang Yang shot back, not backing down. You spend all day at home cooking, cleaning, and driving me and my sister around. Isn't that just living off Mom? So, why are you pretending to be the wronged one now? I closed my eyes. After a deep breath, when I opened them again, I looked at Ruyan. You think that too? Ruyan avoided my gaze. Don't argue about this. In front of the children. Fang Yang, go back to your room. Fang Yu, you too. After the children left, the living room fell into a dreadful silence. Ruyan walked to the liquor cabinet, poured herself a drink, and drained half the glass in one gulp. What exactly do you want? She finally asked, her voice weary. If you're unhappy with your place in this family, I can respect you more. If it's about money, I was just promoted, and I got a raise. If you want to work, I can arrange a cushy position for you at the company. I want to be Fang Yuan. I cut her off. Not Director Liu's husband. Not Fang Yang's father. Not Fang Yu's dad. Just myself. Ruyan let out a cold laugh. You're 46, and now you suddenly want to find yourself. Isn't that a little too dramatic? Maybe. I didn't argue. In the agreement, I gave up all property rights. I only want freedom. You won't get far. Ruyan's voice suddenly went calm. You can't even pay the utility bill. How are you supposed to live independently? I turned and walked to the door. My bags were already packed. I'll stay at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow, I'll move out. Ruyan chased me to the door. Fang Yuan, think about it again. The children need a complete home. I stopped. I did not turn back. The children are already grown, and I am only just beginning to grow up. The moment I closed the door, I heard the sharp crash of a glass hitting the wall and shattering. The hotel room was small but clean. I lay on the bed, staring at the crack in the ceiling. My body was exhausted, but my mind was unnervingly clear. My phone kept buzzing. Calls from Ruyan. texts from Fang, calls from my parents. I didn't answer a single one. Early the next morning, I contacted a real estate agent. With my budget limited, all I could afford to rent was a small room in an old apartment building on the outskirts. The room was on the 6th floor, no elevator, but the light was good. From the window, I could see the distant silhouette of the mountains. I paid 3 months' rent. After getting the key, the first thing I did was buy daily necessities: a towel, toothbrush, and pillow. Ruyan used to prepare all of those. In the supermarket, I pushed a cart through the aisles. Then I suddenly realized I didn't even know what brand of shampoo I like to use. I didn't know. For 20 years, everything in the house had been the brands Ruyan chose, and I had never had a say. In the end, I chose mid-priced everyday items, and also bought simple cookware and ready-made food. At checkout, the number the cashier called out made my heart tighten. These basic things had already taken a small bite out of my savings. The cost of living independently was far higher than I had imagined. Back at the apartment, I spent the afternoon setting up the little 15 square meter space. The bed by the window, the desk against the wall. I put the camera and laptop in the most prominent spot. Looking at this shabby but completely mine space, a strange sense of satisfaction rose in me. That night, I finally turned on my phone to check messages. 37 missed calls, 52 texts. I replied to Fang first, telling her I was fine, and she was welcome to come over anytime. Then I sent my parents a brief message, saying I needed some space to think, and that I would get in touch later. Finally, I opened Ruyan's texts. Most were anger and accusations, while the last few had softened into peace offerings. I didn't reply to her. Instead, I logged into my blog and posted a new article, the first day of walking away, saying, "A middle-aged man's rebirth. No embellishment, no literary flair, just an honest record of my feelings and decisions." After clicking publish, I shut down the computer and lay down on the bed, quietly listening to the night sounds of this unfamiliar neighborhood, the noise from the food stalls downstairs, the honking of cars in the distance, the soft whispers of the couple next door, all of it blending into a symphony of freedom. The days that followed were busy but fulfilling. I formally accepted the travel website's invitation. I took on the feature project that required a 2-week business trip. I contacted Old Zoo for advice on equipment upgrades and professional tips. I reactivated my social media accounts that had been dormant for years and started posting my photography work. Su Meng somehow heard about my divorce and sent me a message to check on me. I briefly explained the situation. She immediately recommended several platforms suitable for freelancers to take on paid jobs, and also introduced a few kindergarten parents who might need a photographer. "Thank you, but you do not need to treat me specially," I replied, not out of pity. She quickly replied, "But because I recognize your talent." That made my eyes burn. That word, talent, hadn't been used to describe me in how long. A week later, I landed my first paid photography job. I shot menu and storefront photos for a small restaurant. The pay was not high, but it was enough to cover half a month's rent. On the day of the shoot, I arrived half an hour early. I carefully checked the light and angles. The restaurant owner was a young man, and he praised my professionalism to the skies. "Teacher Fang, your photos are amazing," he said, staring at the preview on my camera. "They are much better than the expensive professional team we hired last time," he said. I thanked him with a smile, but inside, I was thinking, if Ruyan heard someone praise me like this, what expression would she have? After work, I bought a bottle of beer to reward myself. Sitting on the apartment's little balcony and watching the sunset, I suddenly realized this was the first time in my life I was drinking on money I had earned myself. The taste of that beer was more intoxicating than any fine wine at a high-end restaurant. Ruyan did not give up easily. At first, she sent Fang to act as a go-between. When my daughter, eyes red, asked whether I could come home, I almost softened. But when she said Mom told her, "You will not survive without us," I woke up to myself at once. I told her I was living just fine. I answered calmly and showed Fang the photos I had just taken and the notice of payment I had received. When Fang left, she seemed less worried. She even showed a little envy for my shabby but tidy little apartment. She seemed somewhat envious, much freer than dorm life. Then came my parents' surprise visit. My mother burst into tears as soon as she came in, saying I had let down a wife as good as Ruyan. My father, meanwhile, sternly pointed out that my stubbornness would destroy the whole family. I listened patiently to all of it, then showed them my work schedule and my income and expense plan. Mom, Dad, I am already 46. I want to live the life I actually want, just once. That finally left them silent as they walked away. Ryan's last trump card was to come in person. That day, I had just finished a shoot and came back to find her standing downstairs at my apartment building. She was dressed in designer clothes, which looked especially out of place in the shabby complex. You live in a place like this. That was her first sentence. It was full of obvious disdain. It's very suitable for me, I said, pulling out my key. Want to come up and take a look? She followed me up to the 6th floor. Once we got inside, her brow furrowed even tighter. It's so small there is barely room to turn around. 15 square meters, but it's all mine. I poured her a glass of water. What brings you here? Ryan did not take the glass. Instead, she opened her wallet right away and took out a bank card, placing it on the table. There is $500,000 in here. Come home. I'll pretend none of this ever happened. I looked at that gleaming gold card and suddenly laughed. Ryan, you still do not understand. I do not want your money. I only want my freedom and my dignity. Dignity? She sneered. You think living in a slum gives you dignity? This is not a slum. It is my starting point, I said calmly. Ryan, let us part on good terms. You deserve a partner who genuinely appreciates what you have achieved, not a shadow that keeps smothering himself. Ryan's eyes reddened, but stubbornly she refused to let the tears fall. You will regret this. Maybe, I said softly, but if I don't do this, I'll regret it right now. When she turned to leave, I noticed her shoulders trembling. For one moment, I wanted to run after her and comfort her, but in the end, I did not move. For the first time in 20 years, I put my own needs ahead of hers. After closing the door, I picked up the gold card and looked at it, then slipped it into an envelope. I called the same city courier to send it back to her. The note, one enclosed, had only one line. Thank you for your kindness, but my life is my responsibility. That evening, I received the travel website's formal contract, an itinerary. 2 weeks later, I would head to Yunnan to begin my first professional travel assignment. Looking at the name Fang Yuan on the e-ticket, not as Ryan's husband, I felt a steadiness and anticipation I had never known before. Outside the window, a new moon was rising. Cold moonlight spilled across my desk, illuminating that old camera and the notebook I had just bought. At 46, my life had finally truly begun. The water from the tap came out in a thin trickle. I carefully cupped it in both hands and splashed it on my face. The water pressure in the old apartment was unstable. During the morning rush, the flow was always weak. The mirror reflected an unfamiliar face. The stubble was not fully shaved off, and there were faint dark shadows under my eyes. But my eyes were far brighter than I remembered. It was my second week living on my own after moving out. In the kitchen, the water on the little induction cooktop had just come to a boil. I cracked an egg into the instant noodles. It was an upgraded version I had learned from a food blogger. On the dining table that doubled as my desk, my laptop was on, showing the article I had just finished, City Edge, The Forgotten Corners. The Forgotten Corners. The travel website editor sent me an email, saying the piece had a unique perspective and would be featured on the homepage. Slurping the noodles, I opened my ledger. Blue ink recorded every income and expense. Writing fee, 800 yuan. Photography income, 1,200 yuan. Rent and utilities, 1,500 yuan. Living expenses, 800 yuan. The balance showed I could still last 2 months. That number would not even have been enough to buy a pair of Ryan's shoes before. Now it was the confidence behind my independence. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Fang Yu. Can I come by and see you? I do not have class this afternoon. I looked around the cramped apartment. The peeling walls, the folding sofa I had picked up at a second-hand market, the corner piled with photography gear. This place was worlds apart from Ryan's mansion, but it was my territory. Of course, I will send you the address, I replied. Then I quickly started tidying the room. At 3 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang right on time. Fang Yu stood at the door. She was in jeans and a loose hoodie. She looked a little thinner than the last time I saw her. She was holding a plastic bag. Her eyes kept studying the mottled walls of the stairwell. Come in. Don't mind how small it is. I stepped aside to let her in. Fang Yu walked into the apartment. Her gaze swept over every corner. Finally, it stopped on the camera and laptop on the desk. It's neater than I expected. You thought you'd find a pile of trash and beer cans. I smiled and took the bag from her. Inside were a few vegetarian meal boxes and water. Fang Yu leaned in to look. Then she suddenly reached out and brushed the hair off my forehead. Dad, you have gray hair. That's normal for a 46-year-old. I changed the subject. Do you want to see my work? For the next half hour, I showed Fang the photos I'd taken lately, and the articles I'd written. She looked through them very carefully, and letting out admiring exclamations now and then. She especially loved a documentary photo series about the old neighbors. This composition is amazing. She pointed to a photo of an old man resting at the mouth of an alley. The eyes, the light, the way you handled it. You're really impressive. That simple praise tightened my throat. As Fang Yu grew up, I rarely got any recognition for my work from her. Her dance competitions, grades, and college applications were all handled by Ruyan. I was nothing more than backup support. How is your mom? I asked cautiously. Fang Yu's expression shifted slightly. She's very busy. Her new position is stressful. After a pause, she added, Yesterday she asked me if I knew where you were working. What did you say? I said I didn't know. Fang Yu gave me a sly wink. Though I knew. I ruffled her hair. Clever girl, but thanks. Before leaving, Fang Yu suddenly turned and hugged me. That hug was warmer than any before. I like the person you are now. Even though things at home are a mess, you look really happy. After seeing Fang Yu off, I sat down on the folding sofa. A swirl of complicated emotions rose in my chest. Outside, the sun was sinking. The last glow slipped through the sheer curtains, casting fine patterns of light on the floor. In this shabby little space, for the first time, I felt what it meant to be a father, rather than a babysitter. At 8 that night, I was about to boil some frozen dumplings for dinner, when my phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. May I ask if this is Mr. Fang Yuan? The voice on the other end was gentle, a young man. I'm Li Ming, marketing director at Greenfield Travel. We saw your article in Travelers magazine, and your photography, and we really admire them. We're looking for a photographer to collaborate with. Would you be interested in talking? I tightened my grip on the phone, afraid of missing a single word. Greenfield Travel is a well-known high-end custom travel company in the industry. Working with them would mean steady income and exposure. Of course, I'm interested. I tried hard to keep my voice from shaking. During the 20-minute call, Li Ming explained the project in detail. It was a 3-month, in-depth Southwest itinerary. The assignment required photographing the scenic spots and writing travel reports. The pay was very good, and travel expenses would be reimbursed. We need you to leave next week. It's a bit rushed, Li Ming said apologetically. No problem, I agreed without hesitation. Only then did I remember an important question. How did you find out about me? Li Ming smiled. Teacher Su Meng recommended you. She said you were a rare talent and that you had been sidelined for too long. You've been buried away for too long. After hanging up the phone, I stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen. The frozen dumplings bubbled away in the pot. I felt like I was dreaming. I had only seen her a few times at kindergarten events. We had never even talked much. Yet she was so enthusiastic about recommending me. The dumplings had overcooked. The skins had split a little, but they tasted especially good. I opened my computer. Excitedly, I looked up the climate and routes in the Southwest. At the same time, I emailed the travel site editor to explain the situation. The glow from the screen fell across my face. My mouth curved up uncontrollably. This was the first time I had turned down one job because of another. It was the kind of sweet headache only professionals get. At last, I was experiencing it too. Early the next morning, I went to the supermarket to buy travel supplies. As I passed a newsstand, I spotted a travel magazine. My pen name, Xing, was printed boldly on the cover. Beside it was the headline for that piece at the city's edge. I bought 3 copies, one for myself, one to mail to my parents, and after a brief hesitation, one more. I decided to send to Ruyan. When I got home, I started packing. Camera, lenses, tripod, notebook. Those professional tools were spread across the bed. They took up more space than my clothes. The doorbell suddenly rang. I thought it was Fang Yu again. But when I opened the door, I saw the courier, Mr. Fang. It was a local delivery. I signed for it. It was a delicate cardboard box. When I opened it, I froze. It was the latest MacBook Pro. The specs were more than enough to handle 4K video. There was no signature in the box, only a card. A professional should have professional tools. I immediately guessed who it was from. That was Liu Ryan's style, expensive but practical. Impossible to refuse. For 20 years, she had always been like this. She solved everything with money, but this time, I couldn't accept it. I was just about to contact her and return the laptop. When my phone rang again, it was Fang, her voice unusually urgent. Mom is in trouble. My heart dropped. It wasn't a car crash or an illness. The big project she was in charge of at work ran into trouble. The board wants to hold her accountable. She may be demoted. Fang lowered her voice. She cried last night. I've never seen her cry. Ruyan cried. In my memory, Ruyan had always been that decisive, formidable career woman. No matter how big the crisis, she could handle it calmly. Tears were not in her vocabulary. How is she now? I heard Fang ask. That she had locked herself in the study and wouldn't see anyone. Dad, can you come back and keep an eye on her? I stayed silent for a long time. Outside the window, a sparrow landed on the air conditioner unit and tilted its head at the humans inside. It's complicated, Fang. The problem between your mom and me wasn't because she forgot our anniversary or because she was too busy with work. I said slowly. It was because we both lost ourselves in this marriage. She needs to face that now, instead of relying on me going back to fill the gap. But I will call her. I conceded. But I won't go back. Some roads have to be walked alone. After hanging up, I stared at Ryan's number for a long time. In the end, I never called. Some pain is a necessary part of growing up. It took me 20 years to understand that. Now she had to begin that journey too. Instead, I sent Su Meng a thank you message. She replied quickly. Don't mention it. Your talent deserves to be seen. By the way, Mr. Lee from Greenfield is my cousin. I only made the introduction. Whether we can work together depends entirely on your strength. That explanation made me breathe easier. It wasn't because of any special connection, but because my work had truly impressed a professional. Over the next few days, I was busy preparing for the Southwest trip. I bought outdoor gear, studied the route, and contacted local guides. Every task left me full of drive. Greenfield advanced part of the payment. I was able to pay off some small debts and bought a comfortable office chair for the apartment. The day before departure, I decided to go to the barber shop and trim my increasingly messy hair. The barber was an old man in the neighborhood. His technique was old school, but the price was friendly. Young man, you've got a lot of gray hair. Want it dyed? The old man asked as he cut. No, just leave it like this. I smiled. Being called young man at 46, I didn't know whether to feel happy or bitter. After the haircut, I went to the supermarket to buy travel provisions for the road. At the instant noodle shelf, a familiar figure made me stop in my tracks. Ruyan was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. No makeup. Her basket held vegetarian food and microwave meals. This was Ruyan. I barely recognized her. No tailored suits. No designer bags. Not even that signature. No nonsense decisiveness. She looked up and saw me. She visibly stiffened. We stared at each other across the aisle. Neither of us spoke first. I heard you've taken on new work. Ruyan finally broke the silence. Her voice was softer than I remembered. I'm going to Yunnan tomorrow. I replied. You've run into some trouble at work. The corner of Ruyan's mouth twitched, as if she were trying to hold on to that familiar cold smile. But she failed. The project data was falsified. I didn't do it, but I was the one in charge. Silence fell between us again. A couple married for 20 years, living side by side day and night, now had nothing to say, like strangers. Thanks for the laptop, but it's too valuable. I can't accept it. I finally brought up the topic. Ruyan's eyes flickered. What do you use? I'm used to the old computer. I insisted and had a courier send it back to your house. Her expression grew complicated, like anger, and like hurt. You're still this stubborn. We're both stubborn. We just head in different directions. I said softly, take care of yourself. When Ruyan turned to leave, I heard her call my name, but I didn't look back. Not because of resentment, but because I knew that if I turned around now, we'd fall back into that familiar pattern. She was forceful, and I kept yielding. And we both deserve a better relationship. When I got home, I kept packing. That old MacBook was slow, though. It was enough for documents and basic photo editing. More importantly, I had bought it with money I earned myself. Every scratch recorded my path to independence. That night I cooked a bowl of noodles, eating it while looking through travel materials. My phone lit up with a text from Ruyan. The laptop arrived. Yunnan is rainy. Remember to bring a waterproof jacket. I stared at this message for a long time. In 20 years, this was the first time she had cared about my itinerary. Packing was not an order, not an arrangement, just concern. After replying with thanks, I added one more line about the project. If you need help sorting the materials, I can make time to take a look. I regretted it as soon as I sent it. That was slipping back into that caretaking pattern. But it was too late to take it back. Ruyan replied quickly. No need. I'll handle it myself. Good luck with work. An equal conversation with clear boundaries felt strangely new to us. Before bed, I checked my luggage one last time. ID card, bank card, camera, laptop. Everything I needed was in place. The city lights outside sparkled like stars. By this time tomorrow, I'll be on the train to Yunnan, starting a brand new adventure. At 46, halfway through life, I still felt like a just graduated young man, full of anticipation and a little unease about the future. But this time, all the choices were made by me. Every road was one I chose myself. This feeling of freedom was more intoxicating than any expensive gift. Yunnan's rainy season came earlier than expected. When the train entered a tunnel, the curtain of rain outside suddenly vanished. It was replaced by darkness and the howl of the wind. A few seconds later, we were bathed again in that gray, dim light. That play of light and shadow reminded me of the past few months. From shadow to light, from light back into shadow. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Li Ming at Greenfield Travel. Teacher Fang, Xiao Yang will pick you up when you arrive. A black Buick GL8. The hotel has been arranged. Rest tonight first. We start work tomorrow. I sent back a thank you. Then I kept looking out the window. Raindrops on the glass wound into little streams, blurring the distant mountain silhouettes. 3 months ago, I was still that stay-at-home husband people mocked as a kept man. Now I had become the respected teacher Fang. I had a car waiting to pick me up. I was staying in a star-rated hotel. The train slowed as it rolled into the station. I gathered up my luggage, a light hiking pack and a camera bag. Everything I owned was here. Yet it felt steadier than all the things in that old mansion that had never belonged to me. It made me feel more grounded. The platform was crowded. I spotted him at a glance. A young man holding a sign that read Teacher Fang Yuan. Xiao Yang was in his early 20s, with dark skin, and when he smiled, a row of white teeth showed. Hello, Teacher Fang. Let me take your luggage. On the way to the hotel, Xiao Yang enthusiastically introduced the local customs and scenery. I answered absent-mindedly, but my thoughts drifted to the unread message on my phone. The evening before I left, it was from Fang Yu, right? Mom has been suspended pending investigation. She's very upset. Could you call her? The hotel was more luxurious than I expected. I opened the floor-to-ceiling window, and the whole ancient city lay before me. The rain-soaked black-tiled roofs looked like patches of duckweed. I sat by the window and hesitated for a long time. In the end, I dialed Ruyan's number. It rang 7 or 8 times. Just when I thought she wouldn't answer, the call connected. Hello. Ruyan's voice was hoarse, as if she had been crying. I heard you're having trouble. I chose my words carefully. There were a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line. Did Fang Yu tell you how serious it is? Financial data falsification. The amount involved is not small. Ruyan's speaking pace was slower than usual. I didn't do it, but I was the person in charge. I failed to supervise properly. I had never heard Ruyan sound so powerless. For 20 years, she had always been the one in control. Even when she hit a setback, she would bounce back with even more force. Do you need me to help? The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted it. What could I help with now? I had neither connections nor resources. Unexpectedly, Ruyan didn't sneer at me. No need. Actually, this is better. Maybe I should stop and think about what I've been chasing all these years. What exactly have I been pursuing? Ruyan's voice was so soft it was almost inaudible. Fang Yu showed me your blog. My heart skipped a beat. What did she show you? That piece, The Invisible Wall. Ruyan paused for a moment. I didn't know you could write like that, and I didn't know you were that unhappy. The Invisible Wall was an essay I posted last week. It was about the invisible barriers in a family. Everyone lives in their own world, thinking they understand each other, when in fact they are strangers. I never named anyone in the article, but anyone who knew us would know exactly what I meant. That was just a weak excuse for my creative block. It wasn't really about Ruyan. I took a deep breath. These past few days, I went through every photo in the house. I found that you were almost always behind the camera, or standing at the very edge. We've traveled as a family so many times, yet there are so few photos of you. The rain outside grew heavier. The sound of it hitting the glass almost drowned out the voice on the phone. I tightened my grip on the phone, not knowing how to answer this sudden honesty. Ruyan suddenly called me by my full name, her tone softer than I had ever heard it. The words "I'm sorry" were like a key. unlocking a locked box deep in my heart. For the first time in 20 years, I heard Ruyan apologize. Not for forgetting some anniversary, but for all the neglect and arrogance in our marriage. It's all in the past, I finally said, my voice shaking a little. What are you going to do now? Accept the investigation and take responsibility for what I should. Ruyan paused, then added, maybe I'll live differently from now on. After hanging up, I stood by the window for a long time without moving. Rain blurred the outline of the ancient city, just as time blurred the pain of the past. Ruyan's apology didn't change anything, and yet somehow it changed everything. The next day, work officially began. Xiaoyang drove me to visit several distinctive villages. My job was to document the local customs and scenery, and assess whether they were suitable for inclusion in a high-end travel route. With my camera in hand, I quickly got into the rhythm. I adjusted the aperture, captured details, spoke with villagers, and learned the stories behind them. Teacher Fang, you really look professional when you take photos. During a break, Xiaoyang handed me a bottle of water. You're not like those tourists who just snap a few casual shots. I used to work in this field. I smiled and looked through the morning's results. The screen showed a close-up of an old grandmother weaving. I was pleased with it. Her rough fingers stood in sharp contrast to the delicate fabric, showing the resilience and beauty of traditional craftsmanship. Back at the hotel that evening, I selected more than a dozen photos and sent them to Li Ming, with a brief note attached. Less than half an hour later, he replied, amazing, especially the close-up of the weaving. It completely captured the humanistic spirit we wanted to convey. Teacher Fang really lives up to his reputation. That professional recognition warmed my chest. I sent Fang Yu a message. I shared the results of the first day. She replied quickly, that's so hard. If Mom saw it, she'd definitely regret not discovering your talent sooner. I hesitated for a moment. Then I asked how she was. I went to see a lawyer today. When I got back, I kept looking through things in the study. Fang Yu sent me a photo. It showed Ruyan sitting on the study floor, surrounded by stacks of old photo albums. She said she wanted to get to know you again. Looking at Ruyan's focused profile in the photo, I was filled with mixed emotions. 20 years of marriage. We actually had to rely on separation and photos to get to know each other again. Over the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into the work. I was out at dawn and didn't come back until late at night. I visited more than a dozen villages, took over 1,000 photos, and recorded tens of thousands of words of material. Greenfield was very satisfied with my work. Li Ming even suggested extending the collaboration. Teacher Fang, if you're interested, we could sign a 1-year contract to handle route development across the entire southwest region. At one dinner, he said enthusiastically that the compensation could still be negotiated. It tempted me. A stable income, professional growth, and the travel and photography I love. But deep down, I knew I still needed a real solo journey. Not for any company or project, only to find the self I'd lost for so long. I need to think about it, I answered honestly. As the work drew to a close, Xiaoyang told me there was a surprise. The car stopped in front of a quiet mountain road. He pointed at the peaks in the distance. There is a lookout over there, where you can see the whole canyon, but it's a bit of a walk. Would that be okay for you? Of course. I grabbed my camera bag and followed him onto the muddy path. Half an hour later, we reached our destination. The view suddenly opened up. A canyon wrapped in mist spread out before my eyes like an ink painting. I couldn't wait to set up my camera, adjust the settings, and capture the magnificent view. Teacher Fang, someone wants to see you, Xiaoyang said suddenly, pointing to the other side of the lookout. I turned in confusion and saw a familiar figure standing by the railing. It was Ruyan. She was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, her hair tied up casually. No polished makeup. She looked tired, but genuine. What are you doing here? I walked over, my voice tight with surprise. Ruyan turned around, the corners of her mouth lifting slightly. Fang Yu helped me check your itinerary. After a pause, I wanted to talk to you face to face. Xiaoyang tactfully stepped away. Ruyan and I stood side by side at the edge of the lookout. Below us was a sheer drop, and beyond it, rolling mountains. The wind messed up her hair. I instinctively wanted to reach out and smooth it down, but held back. The investigation is over, Ruyan said. I resigned voluntarily. I stared at her in shock, at how she would just give it up like that. It's not giving up, it's choosing. She took a deep breath. For the past 20 years, I was always trying to prove myself. Prove that a woman can balance career and family. Prove I could be more successful than a man. But in the end, I lost the things that truly mattered. The mist drifted between us. Her face flickered in and out of view. I read all your articles, she continued, especially that piece, Midlife Breakaway. Only then did I realize. You had so many ideas, so much talent, and I never really understood you. We never really understood each other, I said softly. Ruyan nodded. She took an envelope from her bag. This is the divorce agreement. I signed it. The assets will be split as you requested. They'll pay child support, even though they are almost adults now. I took the envelope, but I did not open it. Have you thought it through? It is not about whether I want to or not. Ruyan gave a bitter smile. It is that you need freedom. I respect your choice. The wind suddenly picked up, scattering the clouds. Sunlight poured down, lighting up the entire canyon. The breathtaking scene made me instinctively raise my camera. I pressed the shutter. You are still like this, Ruyan said, looking at me. My every move is always being recorded, while other people are rarely the ones in the frame. I lowered the camera and gathered the courage to ask the question that had been circling my mind for so long. Ruyan, if you had no children, no responsibilities, and no social expectations, what kind of life would you want? She froze, as if she had never really thought about it. I do not know. I was raised to be exceptional, to be successful. No one ever told me what comes after success. I want to keep traveling, keep writing, and keep photographing. I said, what was in my heart? Maybe I will not be very rich, but I will be very happy. Ruyan looked at me quietly, her expression complicated. You have changed a lot, more resolute. So have you. I smiled. The old director Liu would never have resigned voluntarily, much less come all the way out to the middle of nowhere to find me. We smiled at each other. In that moment, it was as if we had gone back to when we first met in our 20s. No roles to live up to, no family obligations, just two young people who admired each other. The way down was harder than the climb up. The path after the rain was muddy and slick. Ruyan was wearing unsuitable sneakers and nearly slipped several times. I instinctively reached out to steady her arm. She did not pull away. When I got halfway down the mountain, Ruyan suddenly stopped. If we do not continue as husband and wife, but start over as to independent people, do you think that is possible? I looked into her serious eyes, thought for a moment, and said, I do not know, but it is worth trying. After we returned to the hotel, we talked for 3 hours in the lobby cafe. It was no longer fighting or silent treatment, but real conversation about dreams and about the mistakes each of us had made in our 20-year marriage. I need some time to travel alone, I said at parting, maybe for a few months, maybe longer. Ruyan nodded. I plan to take some time off. I want to spend time with Fang. She starts university next year. She hesitated. Will you come back? Yes, but not back to the old life. I looked straight into her eyes. We can create a new way of being together. It does not have to follow the traditional marriage model. That sounds challenging. Ruyan smiled. This time, it was a genuine smile. But I like challenges. The next day, Ruyan returned to the city. I continued my work. There were no hugs or kisses when we parted. Just a simple wave. But it felt more sincere than any goodbye before. After the off-road project ended successfully, I politely declined the long-term contract, but I agreed to stay in contact and keep working together. Li Ming said he understood. Artists need freedom. We respect your choice. The day I left Yunnan, the sun was shining brightly. As the plane took off, I looked through the window at the endless mountain ranges below. I thought back to my conversation with Ruyan on the viewing platform. 20 years of marriage was like a long journey. We lost our way for a time, but maybe, in the end, we could find a new path. Back in the city, I did not go back to Ruyan's home. Instead, I rented a small apartment as a creative base. Fang often came by to visit. Sometimes she brought her photography assignment. Other times, we just chatted. Fang Yang still rarely contacted me, but on my birthday, he sent me a brief greeting. That counted as progress. Ruyan and I met once or twice a week. Sometimes at a cafe, sometimes in a park. We talked like friends. We shared our lives and thoughts. This way of getting along felt fresh and comfortable. No expectations, no pressure, just honest conversation. A month later, I packed my bags, ready to begin the long-planned solo trip. From Chuangxi to Zhejiang, I would follow the route of my first solo trip years ago and walk it all over again. The day before departure, Ruyan came to see me off. She brought a small first aid kit. It had altitude sickness medication, bandages, and antiseptic inside. She handed it to me. Do not mind me being naggy. Thanks, I said, taking the first aid kit and stuffing it into the side pocket of my backpack. Fang, you said you are getting ready to go back to work. But not that kind of high-pressure job anymore. Ruyan smiled. I am a consultant for an NGO. The hours are flexible, so I can balance work and life. I nodded. I was happy for her. This decision meant she had finally let go of the superwoman facade. It was about listening to her inner voice. Oh, and this is for you. She took a small picture frame out of her bag. Inside was a photo of me and her on the viewing platform in Yunnan. Xiao Yang had taken it secretly, just a keepsake. In the photo, we were standing in front of the mountains. We were not posing on purpose, yet it looked more natural and real than any wedding photo. I carefully tucked the frame into the inside pocket of my backpack. Be careful on the road. As we said goodbye, Ruyan said, remember to send me some photos. I will. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and hugged her gently. Take care of yourself. On the platform, the train slowly pulled out. Through the window, I watched Ruyan's figure grow smaller and smaller, until she disappeared from sight. Inside my backpack were my camera and notebook, and that little picture frame. Ahead of me was an unknown journey. At 46, halfway through life, I somehow felt as carefree as a fresh graduate. I was full of hope for the future. This time, there were no social expectations, no family burdens, only the path I chose for myself. The train picked up speed. The scenery outside the window began to blur. I took out my notebook and wrote the first line. At the foot of the snow mountains, I met my younger self.